Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to use charts in Blazor. So there's a number of different libraries out there. I'm going to look at this one made by someone named WebAssemblyman here at webassemblyman.com, Blazor charts.html. And he provides a number of charts, and they're nice, simple little components that you can use in Blazor. So I want to do a line chart, and I'm demonstrating this for some of my students that have an assignment that need to do a line chart. So, and I also want to demonstrate how do you figure out how these things work to some extent. So I started off by searching chart and Blazor and happened on this website. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to read the information, and let's see. Usually, there'll be a little bit of instruction in these frameworks. And I think WebAssemblyman does a good job of overviewing what he's doing, and he goes over how his assemblies are made. Let's see, Blazor, hello world. Let's see, is this just about, yeah, that's just about Blazor. I want to see the charts. So I'm going to click on this charts link. Okay, then here's his instruction on how to use charts. And he's giving a demonstration with the donut chart. And often I will just follow their demonstration all the way through. But I think but Blazor usually follows some pretty specific patterns. So it's usually not too difficult to incorporate these things. So one of the things is we need to get this library into our project. So first I'm going to make a Blazor project. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio, and I'm going to say File, New, Project. And I'm going to make a Blazor app. And I'm going to call this Blazor chart demo and leave it in my default folder. And there's several ways you could do this. I think this would work on either Blazor or Blazor WebAssembly. I'm going to make the core hosted. It would probably just work well even just in a regular front-end WebAssembly 2. The core hosted is going to give me a server, a shared, and a front-end project. We're going to do all this in the front-end project, but since my students are using primarily the core hosted format, I'll use that as my template. Okay, so there's my project. We're really going to do all of our work for this demo in this client here. So I'll close these up. And I'm just going to put this chart in the index razor page. And often what I'll do is I'll just take the default demo, but there's a few things we need to set up before this will work. So we've already done this. I've used Visual Studio rather than using .NET New. This would work too, but as long as you have a Blazor project, this will be fine. And we could clone the repo, but I'm just going to go to this repo. And the way this one's set up is there's one project for each type of chart. The easiest way is just to download the zip file. And I've already downloaded it here, so I'm not going to download it again. But what I'll do is go to where this is, and I've already unzipped it. Oh, looks like I've already, let me delete that, and so I will unzip this so that I get a brand new copy. And there's probably several ways you could do this. You could just bring in the ones you need. But I'm just going to take these different projects. I'm going to copy them. And then I'm going to go to my project, open the solution, and then inside my project, oh no, inside my solution, so are they all here? Yeah, they're all here. So I'll just place them in here. So I've got all these projects here. And once they're in the project folder, I can actually right-click on my solution and add an existing project and just pick the one I want. And so I'm going to do a line chart. And so I'll pick that project. And now I have the line chart project here. Now I'll need a reference from this project to the other. One way you could do it is actually you could go into, you could double click and you have these, you can see you could actually just type a reference like that, or what you can do is you can go to dependencies, right click on it, add project reference, and we're going to add a reference to the line chart. And you'll see now it shows up here. So if you don't want to type it all out, you could just use that as well. And so now we have a reference to line chart here. So that gives us a reference to line chart. And for most of these things in, you'll notice that there is a style sheet here. And if we look at our instructions here, we need to include or we need to add a using directive for WebAssemblyman. So let's do that. And the reason we need that is actually you can just look also at let's see, where is it? There's line chart. This is actually the component, inherits from component base, but you'll see that it uses the WebAssemblyman namespace. So if it uses that, then I'm just going to put that in my imports. In my client. That way I have a reference to that. And then let's see what else is needed. We also need to link to the style sheet. So what we'll do is we'll put that in not index.razor but index.html. Under www.root, that's where we have all of our links to our style sheets. So I'll add, we actually want the one to line chart. And that will give us line chart and then style.css. So line chart has a www root, and that will give us this style reference to this styles.css. So now that we have that, let's go to index.razor and I'll just change it just for the demonstration purposes. You would put this whatever page you wanted it. let's see. I think they have a, if you, when I looked through here, I looked at line chart. They had an example of line chart. So, to figure this out, initially, I'm not going to change a whole lot. I'm just going to, let's see, here's the usage. I'm just going to copy that component and place it in here. I'm not going to do any modifications. I'm going to run that, and I'm just going to see what the default chart, see if I can get the default chart to work with no changes. I'll beat up on this later to make it do what I want it to do, but for now, let's just see if we can get it to work. Hurrah! We've got victory. We have a chart that's working. So now that I have the chart working, the rest is really just, okay, let me figure out how this works. Well, I can see I've got 1, 2, 3 lines here. App Store website partners. Let's look at this. And then I've got verticals are numbers and horizontals are dates. So, well, okay, x-axis labels, that makes sense. And then we have these input labels. And we have 4 series here. I just want one series because that's, maybe for what I'm doing, I just want to show one thing. So I have one series, and that means I don't need all of these. And so I'll do that modification. So I've got one series, one set of labels, and I'll run it again. I find it useful sometimes just to simplify down what's going on with this. And okay, I've got some numbers, I've got some dates, and I've got one line. Okay, perfect. Well, let's, basically these are strings. And let's say I want to be able to, pull this in from some code. So I'll put an @code, and I'll create a string that is, I'll call it data, something imaginative like that. And I'll use some data binding to get it to it. So now I'm just initializing a string in my @code directive, and I'm saying put that up here. And then I'll do the same thing for x-axis labels, string x-axis labels equal to that. And then I'll make a string input labels is equal to, and let's say I really wasn't wanting App Store. What I wanted to use this for was depreciation calculator. So I'll say value, and this will now become @input labels. So all I'm doing here is I'm taking this component and just moving everything down into code here so that I can work with it later. So once I do that, let's see if it still works. Okay, that seems to be working. So, depreciated value. So pretty close. Now, I guess the question is, what happens if I change these values? So let me see what happens if I make these ranges a little bit smaller. Okay, it's not too bad. 0 to 10. It looks like it's defaulting to a label size, axis size of 10. I wonder if we can set that. Um, well, he gives us. See, where are the attributes on here? That's probably a thing that I really need to look at. Yeah, we can see what they're doing is it's taking input data. Where's input data located? I'm looking for the parameter properties. It looks like these are hard coded in here. Maybe there's something in here. I know I can do whatever I need with this strings. So it looks like there's not a whole lot of variations here. If I look at I've got different input series I can create, so I can create a different thing. But there's not a lot of variations I can do here. I could probably look at the line chart. Yeah, see, there's all the parameters for input series. And I think they do their own calculations. We could actually modify this if we needed to. But I think for now, initially, probably what I'd want to do is just work within what this is made available. It's a very simple framework. So rather than getting super complex, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually change this to data str. so that I know that that's actually a string. And then I'm going to make var data doesn't like that. I'm going to make let's see, these appear to be integers, but I think they could be doubles. So let's just make an array of doubles called data, which is equal to a new array of doubles equal to this stuff here. Actually, I'm going to get my original numbers back. So we'll make this into an array now, and now the question is, how do we get this value in here? Well, what I could do is create a method and this will just say data str is equal to, and there's a neat function for string called join. And so if we look at string.join, and it takes two parameters, a separator, so we're going to separate on a comma, and you could look this up, or you could have just done it mechanically with a loop, but this is nice and simple. And so this will just construct it from our data. We'll put it into this data string. And then what we'll do is we'll override the onInitialize method so that when this is constructed, we'll call the update data method. So now what happens is onInitialize will update the data, and update data will do, I think one of the things we're going to want to do is call status change just to make sure that it updates everything. Let's see if that works. Good. It's working. Now, to kind of see if this really works, I think what I'd like to do is for the data to modify. So I'm just going to mock this up. I'm going to bring in, make a random variable. And maybe what we'll do is we'll say and let's see. And there's the next method will gives us a couple options. One is to say, we'll say between 5 and 10 points, and I'm just doing this just to kind of make the data change. And then so it's equal to a new double with a random number of elements between 5 and 10, and then we'll say for each var data and data will let me do that. Is an array an IEnumerable? Yes, it is. But I think it's going to have a problem here. Yeah, it doesn't like that because you can't assign inside of a for each. So we're going to have to do a for loop. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than data dot length plus plus I. So I'm going to iterate through each of these, and we'll just say data at I is equal to some random value. We'll get a double, which will give me a value between 0 and 1, and well, for initially, we'll just do 100. So we'll see what that looks like. So this is going to randomly generate it, and then so I can see if it changes, I'm going to make a button that it's at on click will equal update data. See if that works. I don't know if they need to make this a lambda expression or not, but we'll give it a try. Okay, and so we have this. I have this chart. Every time I click update data, it changes it. And so I have some indication that this is working pretty well. So great. I can, essentially control this. I mean, you wouldn't use a random value, or you wouldn't be randomly generating this, this code. You'd actually be pulling it from something or causing some calculation to happen. Now, one thing I do notice is if I make this really large, my chart doesn't look very good. So now it's creating a value, up to 10,000. And the problem is that if you have too much value, then this gets really muddied. Well, how do you deal with that? Well, you change the scale numerically in here. So, let's say that this was actually your value, this is representing the value you're getting. Probably what you're going to do is you're going to make the scale in thousands. And so you'll divide, by 1,000 and make sure that this is all double math. And also, depending on how many elements you are, this scale here probably needs to change for your x-axis labels, because I probably have too many labels. The big thing is there's no right or wrong answer sometimes to these things. You just have to figure out what will present the information the way that will work. This framework was made very, very simplistic. So, okay, now it's showing between 0 and 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, it's just going up to May. And then, so maybe hundreds. So maybe I'll display in terms of hundreds. Okay, so that's a pleasing looking chart. These are really hundreds, and you'd probably want to put a label here, and you can do that just, using regular HTML that says, what the x-axis is, or you might put a little, thing down here that says x-axis is, in hundreds of units. And, every time we click this, let's see, these also probably would change based on what you want them to do. And, that means that you might write some code in here that would set what these values are. And, it might be another where you have your labels as an array and then you do a join operation like this join here to just join them on a comma and pass it to that component, which actually ends up splitting it back out. So there's a little bit of back and forth. It might be nice to modify that line chart class so that it has a parameter and it just passes it in. So, you could modify that, but that's a nice thing about a simple framework like that is that, the gentleman who made this has given you all the code. You can modify it if you want. So anyway, that's how we can kind of use this this chart application. And to review, we had to we started off by bringing in the project into our solution. We right clicked. Actually, the easiest way was just we opened the project and file explorer. I just moved the files directly into the project folder where everything was living, and then once that project was there, I just right clicked on the solution and then added an existing project. And then from here in my dependencies, I right clicked and add project reference so that I could see it. Then I needed in my imports to make sure that I had its namespace so that my component could see it. And I needed to make sure that in index.html, I made a reference to its style sheet. Otherwise, it doesn't look good. I made that mistake the first time. And then once I have that pretty much sets it up. Then I can just put my code in, and just put this line chart in, and it's there's not much into this component. I just have to set three things: the input series, the access labels, the inputs. And initially I just took the code as it was, threw it on there, looked at what it looked like, and just started playing around and experimenting into it until it got to be approximate shape. I recognized that this just needs a string separated by commas, but I needed it in data format. So I may this could be also a list, by the way. So this could be a list of double. And if of course, it's a little different if I make this, if I new up a new list, I can then say var size is equal to so now I'm just going to loop this many times, and rather than saying data.I, I'm just going to say data.add this thing. So we'll just use the add method. And works the same way. Other than that, the string join method works on lists as well as it does arrays, and that will work too. So if you have a class which has a list of something in it that you need to put in here, then you could do that. Or you could construct this list of doubles. Or you could, if you want to treat it as an array, you can, or you can work with a list as well. So this very flexible because we pass it in as a string and we join it. So, like I said, there's other things you're going to have to do probably with this label because it should just be one, this may not be appropriate. You're probably going to want to ask the user from when to when. That'll make the access labels. And that will set the number of elements that you would create, and then you would make you would have some in your class that gets your value out. You would set in those times and get those values out and display them. So there'd be a bit of code here that you would have to do to generate your values. But at the end, you turn it into a string and display it. So that's essentially it. Thank you very much.